The Utah Jazz are on top of pretty much everybody's rankings these days. And they have the Denver Nuggets coming in, who last night did not exactly scintillate, if you will, the masses
Mhm.
by getting torched at home by the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah, not ideal. Not
No,
ideal.
and Jokic getting dunked on by Lauri Markkanen, and I mean, when you look at the Denver Nuggets, like, is that the same team that we thought they would be?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that they're a good team. I think that they're also dealing with some things. Number one, you've got the Michael Porter Jr. situation with COVID and the vaccine. So some nights he can play, other nights he cannot. Number two, you've got Jamal Murray coming in off the injury. And I think that anytime you have one of your best players coming off of an injury, that's going to change things. You got to see how that pans out. But then number three, again, I just think that a lot of these teams, have to come together a little bit. I'm seeing a lot of games that are just messy games. They're not well played games on the defensive end, the offensive end. Like, it's just not. Early season NBA basketball tends to be a bit messy. It tends to be a bit sloppy. So when I look at the Nuggets, I say, yeah, I mean, sure, your MVP got posterized last night, but that doesn't change the fact he's still the reigning MVP.
Yeah.
I think they just have to come together. And frankly, yeah, I know they're on a back-to-back tonight against the Jazz, and theoretically, you would think the Jazz would win this game. But I don't think it's as far apart as it is on paper. I think that the Nuggets have something to prove. I think that the Nuggets definitely got embarrassed last night. No doubt about it. That is not a game that they should have lost. And I think the Jazz need to be ready for a big-time fight. I think the Nuggets are a team that, last year we went to that game where Bogey put up 50 against the Nuggets. And that was a game that they battled, even with Bogey doing what he was doing. So overall, I just think that the Nuggets are a good team. I look around the rest of the Western Conference. I really like what the Lakers are doing right now. Again, I still maintain that defense still needs to improve. Some nights they're getting great defense, other nights it's a little mediocre. So I think consistency they need to improve on as well.
Yeah, it'd be nice. I think, and I think one of the things that's so interesting about this Utah Jazz team right now is where they are defensively. I don't think this is a bad defensive Utah Jazz team, because certainly it is not,
Uh-huh.
but it's not very good either. And the thing that scares you as you go into the depths of this schedule is whether or not this Jazz team can stand in front of guys on most days, and whether or not they can defend laterally, because it seems like that's going to be the challenge. And if I had to guess, that's going to be the fatal flaw in this Jazz team, onto whether or not they're going to be able to defend at a high level one-on-one. And maybe one-on-one is the wrong way to put it, but how much pressure are you going to put on Rudy Gobert to defend the rim when you can't keep guys out of the paint? And I think that is that one fatal flaw. And every team has one, right? When maybe you can't shoot, maybe you can't defend. I don't know. This Utah Jazz team is very good. But if they want to win a championship, they're really going to have to be better man defense. And it'll be interesting tonight to see, to your point, how are the Denver Nuggets going to bounce back from what is unquestionably an embarrassing performance last night?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to bounce back with a lot of energy. I think, again, when we always talk about teams who are on back to back, we think, well, they're going to be tired or maybe they won't have as much gas in the tank. But frankly, it's early in the year. I wouldn't expect them to be that tired. I would expect them to be ready to go. And I think, the Jazz. The thing with the Jazz is, like, when they played the Kings, right? The Kings are a younger, really athletic team that can get the ball up and down the floor quickly, but they lack quality, right? They lack, winning ability in terms of the game. So, when you're watching the Jazz play the Kings, you're like, all right, Davion Mitchell, you've got De'Aaron Fox, you've got Buddy Hield. You've got a bunch of these guys who can really get after it in one-on-one matchups. And I think that was on full display. Now, kudos to the Jazz for going out and winning that game. Shows you the Jazz know how to close
Yeah.
and win tight ball games. But
Yeah.
I just think that it really shows us that one-on-one defense is going to be interesting to see how they address it. I think the key areas of concern in the perimeter are Bogey. He's not a guy that's quick. He's not a guy that's got a great first step defensively. So that's going to be a guy that offenses are going to key in on, number one. Number two, I think the other thing that we got to talk about is the matchups and the way Quinn goes about this rotation. I think we're still seeing him play a lot of guys and a lot of different secondary lineups. He ran one out there the other night that was like, I want to say he had like Oni, Conley, and Rudy on the floor together with Pascal, and I can't remember who the fifth guy was, but he's getting creative with these lineups. And what I'm getting at here, my point is that with him doing that, the defensive matchups will be really interesting. So tonight against the Nuggets, does he go more traditional? Does he go like with what we would expect? Or does he switch things up? That's something you got to watch for.
Well, I don't know. I would think you would see more Eric Pascal tonight because I don't know that you have a real matchup for Aaron Gordon, right? I mean, if you think about that, if you think about the guard play even without Aaron Murray, I mean, you're still getting, Will Barton, Michael Porter Jr., Monte Morris. Like you have all of these 2-3 combo guys. And really, if you look at Michael Porter Jr., a 3-4 combo guy, like you have a lot of guys that play multiple positions. So they're not locked into one style. They're not locked into one way or the other of playing basketball, which I think is part of what the Jazz are. I think the Jazz are locked into playing kind of one style. If videos are going to autoplay.
Dude.
Videos are going to autoplay. It happens. But my point is, I just don't see a whole lot of flexibility built into the way that the Jazz can play. And this is a conversation I think we're going to wind up having pretty much all season. How flexible is Quin Snyder willing to be with his rotations? Because he's been pretty rigid. Historically, he doesn't like to play a lot of guys. And this year, I think he's playing a lot of guys. And don't forget about Rudy Gay. Rudy Gay is a guy that is out with this heel surgery. And there's not a real definitive timeline or a guesstimate at this point.
He was, there was a couple of updates from the folks who follow the Jazz every day. We all know the names on Twitter. Rudy Gay was doing some very light and easy post work yesterday. Nothing super hard contact or anything like that, but he is on the floor and he is moving well. The heel doesn't look like it's an issue for him right now, but there's a difference between practice and being able to go out there and run fives in a full game. So my feeling is he's probably still got a couple weeks, but I'm not a doctor, right? Just based on that video, it seems like there's still about 2 weeks left. So that's where Rudy Gay's at. But I think, this whole thing about Quinn and how many guys he's willing to play. Last year is very different than this year. Last year, I don't really feel like he had a lot of guys to play. I don't really feel like, the Onis of the world or the Azabukis or whoever you want to point to.
Well, Azubuike's no longer on the basketball team.
Yeah,
so
which is the other
relax.
thing. Yeah, the other thing that I love, they what do you call it in the league? They assigned him to the G League team or whatever. So it just is.
But Jake, he's a superstar.
Yeah, apparently.
Doke's a superstar. He is going to have a breakout year.
Right. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
He's no longer on the team. They assigned him to the Stars, by the way.
Okay, good. All right,
but I think it's one of those things where, like, to your point on Hassan Whiteside, I think Hassan Whiteside is showing you that he can play 20 minutes a night for you, and that you're not going to have a huge fall off. Again, I think he was much better in Game 2 than he was in Game 1 defensively, but you're not going to have some huge fall off from Rudy to Hassan Whiteside on the defensive end, and you're going to be better off offensively, with Hassan Whiteside on the floor. And those nights where Rudy just doesn't play very well, and those are going to happen from time to time, Hassan Whiteside's a nice injection into that lineup.
Well, look at it tonight. I mean, you've got a guy in Jokic tonight who is a really mobile big, a guy who is light on his feet, a guy who obviously can score the ball at will. And it kind of begs the question, like last year, this would have been a game that Rudy's going to have to play, pushing 40 minutes. I mean, that's just what it was last year. And I think this year that doesn't have to be the case. And I think that's a huge advantage for the Jazz. You can't tell me there weren't times last year where Rudy was tired. I mean, I just don't believe it. I mean, the guy played a ton of minutes. So like tonight, what I would love to see is from time to time getting Hassan out there against Jokic from time to time just to see what he can do, because Hassan, in my opinion, is a more mobile big than Rudy. Now, Rudy is a superior defender. Rudy is a much more intimidating presence there in the middle, but I think when you're playing a guy like Jokic, the value of mobility is high. I mean, you got to have a guy who can keep up with him. So I'll be just curious to see, what Quinn does in terms of when he takes Rudy out. Is he going to take him out with 10 minutes left in the first quarter? Is he going to push it and wait till 6 minutes left in the quarter? That's what I'm looking for. I want to know, is Mike Conley going to play, 10 out of 12 minutes in the first quarter? Or is Mike Conley only going to play like 8 or 9 minutes and then we get the Jared Butler experience? That's what I want to see tonight, because I just think that this Nuggets team is uniquely set up to give many teams, not just the Jazz, but many teams problems matchup-wise. Like you were talking about, they've got a lot of guys who can do multiple different things. So to wrap the Nuggets up, like, I think they are a good team. I think they have some inconsistencies that they're going to deal with most of the season. And I think it's just going to be a matter of how cohesive they can be offensively, because Jokic can't go into this whole passive, I'm just going to play point guard as a 7-footer setup that they like to run. That's not going to work if they want to win games. So that's what you need to be looking for.
And Jokic loves to be the guy that just, here, let me stand at the top of the key. I'll hand off to you, and you'll hand off to me, and I'll hand off to you, and one of us will hawk up a terrible three.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like that.
He likes that.
When the Denver Nuggets struggle, that is default Nikola Jokic Denver Nuggets basketball.
That's not what we're about.
Yeah, well, apparently it is, Coach. I think one of the more interesting things about this Jazz team is Quin Snyder. And I'm a huge Quin Snyder guy, have been, am today. He needs to play. He needs to figure out what that rotation is. He really does. And I don't mean to belabor that point, but are you still a Quin Snyder guy? Are you still on the Quin Snyder train?
I mean, I think all the people who are hating on Quinn are just misguided. Like, I think that they don't realize that he really didn't have. I mean, honestly, he really didn't have but 7 guys last season. You had your starting 5 plus 2 guys coming off the bench. I mean, everyone was like, "Oh, well, why didn't he make an adjustment?" In the Terrence Mann game was on Quin Snyder, and I just disagree with that. I think that what was so painfully obvious is that that Quin Snyder was left to play that game against the Clippers with one hand tied behind his back. I mean, that's just what it was. I mean, you had the Mike Conley injury. You had Donovan at 50%, I would say, at most. And you don't have a guy on your roster who can fill in for Rudy Gobert when the Clippers go small.
Right.
So you were left with a decision, and that decision was, hey, we're going to die on the hill of Terrence Mann. If he's going to make all those threes, we're fine ending our season like that. And that's what ended up happening, unfortunately. So when I look at Quin Snyder, I don't think he's a bad coach. I actually think he's a damn good coach. I think that his tactics are good. I think his adjustments are good. There are times where the out-of-bounds stuff is not great. But overall, I think he does a really good job of keeping this team on track and getting them back to where they need to be when they get 2-3 happy.
Yeah, and I think sometimes his angry timeout hand slapping thing pisses people off too. But I think Quinn is in a make or break year. I think this is a critical year for the entire organization.
Yeah,
I really do. All right, let's get some of your thoughts in here. What's going on? James Knight says, "G'day, lads. G'day, mate." Chipotle is overrated, says, "Good morning, everyone."
So reliable.
Good morning. Well, I'm telling you. And by the way, Maury Alvarez says, "Missed the live show yesterday, but Cafe Rio 10 times better than Chipotle." Ham.
We're sitting here before the show trying to come up with like a third topic because we felt a little light. Why didn't we just go with Chipotle versus Cafe Rio? I mean, that's what everyone wants to talk about very clearly. I mean, why didn't we just go with that and do the whole show on that?
Instead, and this is not a joke, I'm dead serious about this. We're like, well, we feel like we're a topic light. We've got the Pop-Tart lawsuit. That's interesting. Jake hates customer service reps. Okay, that's interesting. And Jake's like, well, why don't we just talk about the worst places to fart? Like that.
I mean, I don't know how I do it.
That's his idea for a topic.
I don't know how I do it. I really don't. I don't know how I do it. I mean, I'm just that good.
I know how you do it. You don't do it. Greg Hawkins says, hello, Greg. How are you? Hope you're doing well, my friend. Eric C says, let's go Jazz. Jeremy Bolton says, sup.
What's up?
Sup, brah. Teddy Wayman says, morning, guys. Should be a good game tonight. Really should be. I'm really into the NBA right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm all
There's
in.
something about it this year. I feel like maybe it's because we don't have to deal with the bubble and like we're still kind of coming off of the COVID-19, really rough season, oddball timing. Because really, if you think about it, the NBA didn't really have an off season. Like when they played the bubble super late into the year, they were playing basketball again. Like, what was it, 8 weeks after that? I mean, we
Well,
didn't.
and just having full buildings,
Yeah,
having big moments,
yeah.
like it feels like the game is back to what we've missed so much.
And what we all know and love. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's what makes, the NHL is pretty intimate with the way the fan experience is, but I feel like the NBA is just on that next level of like, just everybody dialed into the game. And when something big happens, the place just explodes.
Well, because there's a level of separation in the NHL. They wear helmets, there's glass.
Yeah.
In the NBA, there's no separation. They're just wearing shorts and tanks, and you're right on the court. You're right there. You can feel
So when
the
Jokic got
crowd.
posterized last night,
Yeah, that dunk by Markkanen, that was in Denver.
incredible.
That was in
Bro,
Denver.
And I want everybody who's watching that highlight needs to understand that was to start the game.
That was the
their
first play of the
first
game.
possession, dude.
Yeah, Cleveland won the game right there. I mean,
Like, jeez.
but I just am so glad that sports are back. I've missed it so much, and I know that I'm probably, oh, you're just emotional, honey. And you're right. I could be just being emotional, but
But I feel like we all are.
yeah,
Like,
I'm really glad that big college football atmospheres are back. I'm glad that big games in the NFL are back. It just feels
like all is right with the world.
it feels right again. Like, and this is what I always say about why do we love sports so much? Not to go off onto this tangent, but we love sports so much because it is the tie that binds. I mean, right now I am in the cycle of pain as a sports fan. Which is why the Bulls, who are going to let me down, I guarantee it. It's nice to see that the Bulls are actually winning because the Bears are absolute garbage, like trash.
Right.
Anthony Rizzo said he doesn't want to go back to the Cubs.
Because it's garbage.
Like,
Who would?
just shoot me. Like Notre Dame is average. The Bears are awful. Like, I don't have much to hang on to as
Where
a
are we
sports
at
fan.
in society today?
Yeah, I mean, seriously. And you know what? I think that's how a lot of us are. And it is just, to me, it just feels good to have it back.
Yeah.
It is.
I agree. And I think that, we're in the time of the sports season, and every dude who watches sports a lot knows this feeling when you're like, all right, gotta have the remote at the ready because I've got Monday Night Football here. I've got a great NHL game over here.
But
I've
look
got
at
the
Thursday.
NBA,
like, I'm excited for Packers Cardinals on Thursday night.
Oh,
I
yeah.
cannot wait to see J.J. Watt break Aaron Rodgers' face.
Even if Devontae Adams doesn't play because of COVID protocol, that's still going to be a phenomenal game.
Yeah, and I hope that the Packers get blown out. Like, I hate the Packers.
Well,
which is why I can't wait for that game because I hate the Green Bay Packers.
Right.
And I'm passionate about them losing, sucking, never winning again. And
Aaron fucking Rodgers.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers never having another happy moment in his life.
Yeah.
Like, I'm passionate about that.
That's every day.
So, it's probably too much. It is what it is. Spencer Morgan says Hassan Whiteside carried the Jazz versus Sac when Rudy was having a terrible night. But was Rudy having a terrible night, or is that a tough game for him to stay in?
I think it's again. I know I'm the guy who started the hate on Rudy Gobert train all those years ago. I know, but
We get it.
But I actually don't think it's hating on Rudy Gobert to say that there are some teams that he just does not match up well against. I don't think that that's unfair or being like Mr. Negative. I think you look at that matchup and it's not. They don't really have like Rashawn Holmes is not some 7-foot big. He is a power forward playing center, and he's a young, energetic guy.
And he gave Rudy a lot of problems.
Yeah, I mean, he dunked on Rudy twice, and the other problem, and this is really the nuts and bolts of the conversation, the penetration that teams are getting on the Jazz lately has been at a really high level. And that's not just a Rudy Gobert problem. Let's be very clear. Like, this is not, hey, Rudy's not doing a good enough job, or Rudy this or Rudy that. This is a team defense issue. This is a, hey, Bogdanovich is getting torched on the perimeter, and then that's going to lead to Rudy playing help defense, which leaves his man open for an easy look. That's the problem. That's what the Jazz are facing. So I don't really know how you counteract that other than to say, all right, the trade deadline needs to be useful for this team. I'm not saying that trading Bogey has to be a priority. I'm saying that you've got to get better perimeter defense. That has to be the priority for this team. Because if that happens, now you're really a tough team to play with. Because if you can play good perimeter defense, or you have a guy that can at least match up with a team's best player, and then that guy can make it hard, and by the time you're making it difficult on that guy, by the time he gets to the rim, Rudy's been there. You're just going to be a really tough defensive team. So right now they aren't that. So that's why I think the trade deadline is so important. That's what I think they need to get, because if they get that, they're instantly going to become much better than they are right now.
All right. Who's the best team in the NBA? NBA.com, ESPN.com, Hoops Hype, and I can't remember the other one, have the Jazz ranked number 1 in their power rankings. Would you agree the Jazz are the best team in the NBA? Because I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't put them number 1 right now.
I mean, I have trouble saying they're number 1, but they're definitely not outside of the top 5. I think my biggest problem is that when I look at how they match up with, like tonight again against the Nuggets, perfect example. The Jazz are gonna have to shoot the hell out of 3-ball to win this game. Like we need to just own that, and that's who they are, right? I mean, we know that they're good at shooting threes, but Jokic is gonna have 35 tonight. I guarantee it. Like, you can just rubber stamp that. He is not about to have 2 games in a row where he gets embarrassed. That's just not happening. Guys like him bounce back in a big way. It's the Utah Jazz. Like, he's gonna have a big night. So I just think that what that means is that if you're Rudy Gobert, Rudy's not going to have 20 and 20 tonight. Rudy's going to have 12 and hopefully 23 and 24.
But Bowler said the other night that Rudy is in it. If somebody could get a memo to Craig Bowler, Jack, please. We get it. You think the Olympics were really good for Rudy Gobert. Oh, he's seeing. If Craig Bowler Jack says one more time, oh, he's just so confident coming off of winning that silver medal.
Come on, guy.
Here's the thing. I think the Jazz right now today should probably be ranked number 1. I don't think they're the best team. One, I think their schedule is gift wrapped. I think when you look at their schedule, okay, what was it? OKC, Sacramento, 7 weeks off, and now they play the Denver Nuggets.
7 weeks off.
Like they haven't played. When was that Sacramento game? That Sacramento game was like Friday.
This stretch of games here is their first good test. So I was looking at. You have it up.
Denver, and then they go on the road. Houston, Chicago, Milwaukee.
So on a surface level, you're like, hey, like Houston, they should win. I don't think they're going to beat Houston. I'm just telling you. I don't think they're going to beat Houston. Houston's got a ton of athletic guys. Houston runs their ass off.
They get after it.
And Houston is not going to be afraid of Rudy Gobert. I can tell you that right now. You've got a guy in Jalen Green, I believe? You got a guy in Jalen Green that is happy to dunk on anybody, and that's mainly because he's like 6'7", 6'8". So I just don't think that the Houston game is some gimme. And then the Bulls that is a game that you should win, in my opinion, but that's going to be a tough one, too. That's going to be another.
Wait, I'm sorry. I thought you said they should beat the Bulls.
They should beat the Bulls. But again,
it's the Chicago Bulls.
Right.
Are you kidding me right now?
I get it.
Are you kidding me? They're 4-0. The Chicago Bulls are 4-0.
Yeah.
Why would you say such a
That's quite enough. We get it.
Zach LaVine. I think Lonzo Ball is playing some of the best point guard in the NBA right now. And Alex Caruso's the odds-on favorite to be the MVP right now.
4 games in. Just like the Jazz are number 1, Caruso's the MVP favorite.
Here's the thing that worries me about the Rockets in all seriousness. When you look at the guys that play heavy minutes, Kevin Porter Jr. finally looks like he's not a complete fool. Green, Christian Wood. I mean, I look at Gordon. House off the bench. Like they have young, fast talent.
Yeah,
that worries me if I'm the Utah Jazz. I always worry about that. And then the Bulls, frankly, if in all seriousness, if you look at the Bulls and you look at the way DeMar DeRozan's leading that team, he and Zach LaVine are the 1-2s on that team.
Yeah,
and you have a pass-first point guard in Lonzo Ball, who's passing up open layups to throw alley-oops. they're going to be very difficult for the Utah Jazz to handle, especially at United Center.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how many people are paying attention right now. The United Center's popping for basketball. It's nice to have, again, as a Bulls fan, the United Center is a great building when it's lit. And for the Chicago Bulls, it's lit. And when you start watching the way that they're playing, their defense is suffocating. Their defense, they're giving up under 100 points a game. I think they're giving up 98 points a game. Their defense is suffocating.
And they have some great big, don't they?
No,
Okay, got it.
I'm not a Vucevic guy.
Right, I know you're not. But he can play, though.
He can. He can shoot. He doesn't have to play inside to beat you.
Yeah, so this stretch of games is going to be difficult. There's no doubt. I think, as a Jazz fan, I wouldn't be surprised if I think you're probably, 2 potential losses here in the next 5 to 7 games, I think, but again, that's pretty good odds, right? If you're winning 5 out of every 7 you play, that's pretty good.
Lonzo Ball is averaging 14 points, 6 rebounds, 5 dimes, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and just 2 turnovers a game.
That's every day.
Through his first 4 games. Like, if they're going to get that out of Lonzo, and by the way, the 3-point percentage,
it's been really good. He's much improved, and this is why I say guys like Rudy, guys like anybody in the league, Ben Simmons, no excuse not to make a shot.
Lonzo Ball shooting 43% from 3. Zach LaVine is shooting 44% from 3.
So obviously that's going to come down, right? Like that's not
Dude.
realistic. Obviously a small sample size, but I think that what it goes to show you, the story that the metrics tell us, the numbers, right? What that tells us is that this team likes to get up and down. They play with a lot of pace. They're not scared to play physical defense. And they're going to take the shot. Much like the Jazz, they're going to take the shot. And we talked about this a lot last season, and it's going to be a talking point this season. I'm just telling you now. The Jazz 3-point percentage has to be 38-40% as a team for them to win ball games.
Oh, it's got to be solidly 40% plus.
It's got to be.
Has to be.
It just has to be. And I think, I give Donovan Mitchell a lot of credit. He worked on extending his range in the offseason, and that's paying dividends. I mean, literally anytime there's a communication mistake at the top of the key or out, like when he's bringing the ball up and they run a pick and roll and the defense miscommunicates, Don's going to knock that down.